Assalamu alaikum everyone and welcome back to Civil Quality Hub. I am Muhammad and in today's video we are going to discuss one of the most important document used in construction quality control. Okay, so that is ITP, Inspection and Test Plan. If you are a working QA/QC engineer or QC inspector or site engineer or even a fresh graduate, okay, understanding ITP is very important. So in this video, I will explain what is ITP, why do we need ITP, what are the typical columns in ITP, and what are the points, inspection points that are hold, witness, surveillance, and review point, okay, and how does an ITP work with a WIR. And finally, we will discuss some common mistakes while preparing an ITP. So let's get started. What is ITP? An ITP is a quality control document that defines the inspection and testing activities required during construction. It mainly specifies few things which are very important for an ITP. That is, what will be inspected, when inspection will take place, who is responsible, and which acceptance criteria apply, and what record must be maintained. Okay, or in simple words we can tell like this: ITP is a structured document which outlines the required inspection and testing activities for a construction process. Okay, so before moving to next slide, just imagine we are doing a block work. Okay, so the ITP can tell us when we need to inspect the material, okay, when we need to check the setting out, that means like first layer of the block, okay, when to check the alignment and verticality, and when to finally inspect the completed work. So you can think of an ITP as a roadmap of quality control during construction. It doesn't just tell you only to inspect the work, okay, it tells us when, how, and against what criteria, and by whom will be inspected. Okay, I hope you got what is ITP. Next, why is an ITP required? Now let's understand why an ITP is required. There are several important reasons. Okay, we will go one by one. First, ensures work complies with project specification. Okay, for example, every construction project has an approved specifications, drawing, and quality standards. An ITP ensures that each activity is inspected according to the project requirement, okay, before it is accepted. For example, suppose we are constructing a block work. What the specification requires, we have to check that, like for example the thickness of the block, like 200 mm, and what kind of block, and what is the approved mortar mix, and verticality tolerance might be like plus or minus 3 mm for every 3 meter. Okay, so the ITP tell the QC engineer to inspect this requirement before approving the work. Okay, if any requirement is not met, the work is corrected before moving forward. Okay, so the key message is an ITP ensures the work meets the project requirement, not just what the contractor thinks is acceptable. Okay, so this is the meaning of first point. Now second is prevent defects before the next activity. Okay, this is one of the biggest purpose of an ITP, to identify problems early. Fixing defect before the next activity, it saves both time and money. Okay, if imagine reinforcement is done improperly and you move to the next activity, like pouring of concrete, and how you will correct this reinforcement. Okay, so the reinforcement becomes hidden now. So for repairing this, you have to break the concrete and all, okay, which might lead to delays and additional costs. So the key message is to detect defects early to avoid to avoid any expensive rework later. So next is to define hold point and witness point. Okay. So ITP identifies the stages, identify clearly the stages where the inspection are mandatory, as I discussed in previous point, like to prevent defects before the next activity. If we identify like hold stage at the stage of reinforcement as an hold point, that contractor should not move forward for the concreting before inspecting the reinforcement. So it is very important to define the inspection points at different stages of construction. And next point is standardized inspection procedure. Here might be different inspector may inspect the work differently, okay, and they have their own way, might be every inspectors, okay. So an ITP provides one approved inspection procedure that everyone follows. For example, for block work, every QC engineer should check what is the block type, mortar mix on a okay, wall alignment or verticality, joint thickness, okay. Since everyone follows the same ITP, inspection remains constant. Okay, so let us move to next. Maintains traceability. Traceability means being able to prove that what was inspected, when it was inspected, okay, and who inspected it, and what are the results for this inspection, okay. For example, 6 months after completion, the client may ask, okay, who approved this block work, okay. So we have the WIR, okay, an inspection checklist, and inspector name, okay, consultant approval, and inspection date. These criteria complete, these criteria are complete history of the work. Okay, so good records allow every inspection to be tracked back at any time in the project. Okay, so next, provides QAQC records for handover. Okay, ITP helps to ensure all required records are being collected. Okay, this may include WIR, material inspection, test reports, calibration certificates, material certificate, etc. Next, supports ISO 9001 quality management system. Okay, this is very important. Okay, so ITP helps to satisfy the requirement of ISO 9001 2015, particularly clause number 8.5.1, which tells like control of production and service provision. Okay, and the other important clause is 8.6, which tells release of products and services. Okay, in details I will go on next or any other video where I will speak about ISO 9001 2015. Next, let us move to the typical ITP columns. This is the screenshot of one of the ITP plan of my project. This is not an approved one, this is just a format which I have taken. Okay, here I will just explain what are the typical ITP columns. For example, first will be like activity description, and other will be like type of inspection, or you can say like method of inspection, which may include document reviews, visual inspections, measurement, test, these all things. Okay, next column, if you see here, reference document. Here we have to mention what will be the reference documents for this activity, like specification, okay, approved material, approved WIR, approved shop drawing, survey report, etc., etc. Okay, next is frequency. Here we will define how much frequency, how many times the inspection to be done for this activity. Okay, at which stages. Next will be like acceptance criteria. Here we'll mention what are the acceptance criteria for this activity to be approved. Okay, specification, method statement, okay, approved shop drawing, specs, survey report. To be true, acceptance criteria should be mentioned clearly. Okay, For block work, the tolerance should be mentioned like for every 3 meter it should be plus or minus 3 tolerance limit, and for 6 meter it will be around 6 like this. You have to mention clearly so that the inspector will be aware of this thing. Next, verifying document. Okay, what are the verifying documents for these activities should be mentioned. And next, inspection points. H stands for here hold point. Okay, W stands for witness point. Surveillance, S stands for surveillance, and R stands for review. Okay, so okay, I will explain you what is hold point. Okay, I have mentioned, yeah, it is mentioned over here in the bottom. Written notification required. Contractor may not proceed activities beyond this point without approval or acceptance from the engineer. Okay, without any approval for this activity, contractor should not or cannot proceed for the next activity. This is the meaning. And witness point is nothing but a written notification required, but contractor may proceed if engineer do not attend. A simple example I can give you like slump test. Okay, next let us move to surveillance. Here no notification is required, but activity may be subjected to engineer surveillance or monitoring. Okay, I hope you got this point. And R is like review, records or document review for confirmations. Okay, in next video inshallah I will tell you how to read the ITP and how to exactly prepare the ITP. Okay. Okay, let us move to next slide, that is common mistakes in ITP or while preparing ITP. Now let us talk about some common mistake like missing hold points. Okay, if a critical inspection stage is missing, work could proceed without required approval. If you see this image over here, for example, in step 1 reinforcement is completed, and without any inspection second step was proceeded for concrete pouring. If the reinforcement was not done properly, then it will be very difficult to rework or to correct the previous work. You have to break the concrete and all. Okay, which might result in a delay in the work and extra cost. Okay, so the correct way is like defining the whole point like before pouring concrete. Okay, first reinforcement will be completed, then if this is a whole point, consultant will approve, and if there is any issue or mistake, the work will be rectified before concrete is poured. Okay, so next point will be like next mistake is wrong specification reference. Always make sure the specification clause referenced in the ITP actually applies to the activity. Okay, a wrong reference can lead to inspection against incorrect requirement. For example, here in the ITP for block work, they mentioned the clause for plastering. Okay, so inspector checks the block work against plastering requirement. Okay, this might lead for rejection and all. Next, no acceptance criteria. Just we should not write in ITP like don't like check alignment, check verticality. Okay, we need to know what is the acceptable tolerance limits. Okay, the acceptable tolerance and requirement should be clearly identified. Okay, next let us move to no inspection records. Every required inspection or test should have the appropriate record. For example, WIR, checklist, test reports, or other required document. And remember, if we cannot demonstrate this inspection, traceability becomes very difficult. Next common mistake is incorrect responsibility assignment. Okay, the ITP should clearly identify who is responsible for performing, verifying, and witnessing or you can say like reviewing or approving the inspection as acceptable. Okay, don't simply just we have to write like contractor. Okay, clearly we have to define the responsibility according to the approved project procedure. Okay, at last, remember an ITP is not just a table that we prepare for approval. Okay, it is a quality control tool. If the if the whole points, specification, reference, acceptance criteria, test frequency, records or responsibilities are incorrect, then the ITP may fail to control the actual construction process. Okay, so before approving or preparing this ITP, you have to remember this HSATRR. Okay, where H stands for whole points, S stands for specification reference, and A stands for acceptance criteria, T stands for test frequencies, and R stands for record, and R stands for responsibilities. Okay, I hope you all got what is ITP and all. Okay, so thank you, and share it with your colleagues or any fresh graduates who need to know this quality control thing. Okay, thank you.